Hello everybody, NitPicker here, complaining about issues great and small for your entertainment, and today we're going to be talking about Sonic Mania on the PS4. 2014 was back in rough times for Sonic the Hedgehog. We had Lost World, which was generally mixed across the board, but then this year was also the year that Sonic Boom launched. Thankfully, I don't have a Wii U at the moment, so I won't be making a nitpick on that shit just as part of this series. So today, we're fast forwarding to 2017. July 2017 was the event where Sonic Mania got announced. And I think something else did too, but I'm not sure. It's kind of a blur in my head. I don't know. Probably some weird spinoff or something. Anyway, this was the year that Sega was going back to the classics and hankering into that Sega Genesis nostalgia.
Well, now I am legally obligated to wear this hat and shove classic Sonic down your throat.
Developed by the fan developers who were also professionals, Christian Whitehead and Headcanon, who proved themselves by their fan games and remakes of Sonic 1, 2, and CD, which finally came to consoles, along with 3 and K in Sonic Origins. But before that, they were set to work on a Sonic game meant to call back to the original Genesis trilogy and bring back classic Sonic in a whole new way on modern platforms. And I was so happy about this concept, I got the fucking collector's edition at launch. But were they able to do it? Did Sonic Mania live up to the hype? Let's find out. Let's nitpick Sonic Mania for the PS4. Before we get into the story, we gotta see the amazing opening cutscene for this game. After waiting on the title screen for a few seconds, a gorgeously animated cutscene plays with Sonic and Tails and Knuckles running around a bunch of shapes inspired by the Japanese box art for the classic games. Then introducing the enemies we will be seeing, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But this is an awesome intro for the game, and one of the best in the Sonic series for sure. Then the game opens with Sonic and Tails flying just like they do at the beginning of Sonic 3 when they run into these robots, pulling a strange ruby called the Phantom Ruby out of the ground that teleports them and a nearby Knuckles to the luscious Green Hill Zone, and also turns the robots into the Hard-Boiled Heavies, a new powerful line of robots. So now Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles must run through the zones collecting the Chaos Emeralds while stopping the Hard-Boiled Heavies and Doctor Eggman and take the Phantom Ruby back. The story is pretty basic, obviously, not too big, but of course this is a classic Sonic game, so that's to be expected. But the Hard-Boiled Heavies are really cool antagonists. I love their designs, each one being different from each other. And I think that's really cool and contrasts them well, giving you a good idea of what they're like based off their design and look. Speaking of looks, I mean, just look at this. Sonic Mania is basically the Sega Saturn Sonic game we never got. The sprites have buttery smooth animations, and these zones look so pretty and detailed. I wouldn't say it blows the Genesis games out of the water, because it doesn't. The Genesis games have aged immensely well, but Mania's style looks of crisp, bright, and colorful graphics. The original zones we've seen before in the Genesis games have received a major glow up, and the original stages in this game, more on that later, all look amazing, full of color and life, and fit right along the stages that are returning in this game. Interestingly though, to me, it seems like the sprites in this game, mainly Sonic himself, look more like a retooled Sonic 2 sprite rather than the Sonic 3 sprite, which is really weird to think about. But it's not like these sprites look bad, quite the opposite even. I think this is the best Knuckles sprite ever so far. Sonic 3's wasn't bad, but its weird smirk always rubbed me the wrong way. It didn't seem true to his character, and his claws look way more detailed and not like stubby fingers. Though his climbing animation looks better and smoother, it's kinda missing that shimminess he had in Sonic 3. Also, Tails has his ass way more up in the air when he's in flight mode. You can't unsee it now, can you? So can't I. This might be a bit more of a controversial take, but while I love the 60 FPS look of the animations in this game, does anybody feel that the more choppy animations were kind of charming in the original sprites? I'm not saying that means it's a bad thing, but when you look back, I don't know, seeing the animations in smooth 60 FPS just doesn't look as charming. But regardless, this game looks and feels great. Let's get into the gameplay before we go any further. And as someone who played all three characters, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, this game is great. They truly did make an amazing mania of all three classic Sonic games, where it's not exactly a sequel, we'll get to that, but it's an amazing love letter to the classic games. The controls have been fine-tuned to perfection in Sonic Mania. the momentum, the physics, animations, everything is just fine-tuned with tons of upgrades to the classic Sonic formula without evolving the wheel too much. It really brings that feeling of zipping across levels and zones getting to the end while obviously doing a lot of exploring for hidden pathways and goodies to help you get to the goal faster. A ton of features from the classic games make a return, like the elemental shields. Be invincible to fire and dash with the fire shield. Breathe underwater infinitely and bounce yourself up with the water shield, and double jump and become shock resistant with the electric shield. Sonic Mania has many obstacles and set pieces you can use these shields on. Most famously, you can use the fire shield in Oil Ocean to set the oil on fire, which is the cool sentence I just said, or you can use the electric shield to magnetize to a certain ceiling in Flying Battery as a productive use. Of course, just like in the classic games by the way, only Sonic can use the mechanics of the elemental shields. They even brought in a lot of deep cut references like this power up from Knuckles Chaotix, where if you get hit, your rings will scatter around in groups of 10, making it easier to pick them up. And you're going to want to do that if you want to go after the Chaos Emeralds, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But Sonic Mania doesn't just build off existing mechanics. Sonic Mania introduces its own mechanics and gimmicks. The main one being the Trop Dash, which lets you fall to the ground and immediately be in a spin dash, helping you go faster, almost making the OG spin dash obsolete. I did talk about the zones a little bit earlier, but let's get into them as a whole. You of course have your Green Hill Zone and Chemical Plant Zone, which is a staple of course. They deserve to be here even if we saw them in Generations. There are some other notable stages like Stardust Speedway from Sonic CD and Oil Ocean Zone from Sonic 2. Though, admittedly they brought in some weird ones, like Metallic Madness from Sonic CD. Why would you bring anything from Sonic CD, let alone Metallic Madness? And poor Sonic 3, the two stages they brought over were the two worst ones. Lava Reef? Who the hell was like, ah yes, Lava Reef from Sonic 3. I really wanted that. Or Hydro City. You could have brought in Aquatic Ruin from Sonic 2, the literal best water stage in classic Sonic. But no, you chose the worst one. Hydrocity, Hydro City, I don't fucking care because this zone is hydro shitty. Anyway, but these zones I guess deserve to be here, and refreshingly, they did add some gimmicks and set pieces to freshen up these stages. Some examples like Wacky Workbench freshening up Chemical Plant, Flying Battery having enemies from Sonic 2's Flying Fortress, Stardust Speedway having the pull-up from Marble Garden, and so much more, all breathing new life into these stages. Dare I say, with these returning set pieces and environments, this truly is a Sonic Mania. You know what's also a mania? This goddamn fucking soundtrack. T-Lopes, you have graced my ears once again, you beautiful bastard. There is not a single track in this goddamn game I'm not dancing to or vibing to the banging Hard-Boiled Heavies theme, which makes me like these guys even more because they got such a good theme. Look, I will gladly let these robots take over the world if we say their themes be the national anthem. But goddamn, there's the other tracks too, which is just a vibe, like Lava Reef and Press Garden Act 2. You know what? Screw the Hard-Boiled Heavies. T-Lope should take over the world. Okay, so now that we've gotten over a lot of what Sonic Mania has to offer, and pretty much all of it being stellar and high quality at that, in fact, I would say that Sonic Mania is the best classic Sonic game for its quality and production values. Almost. There is one glaring flaw with this game in that I feel it has a huge identity crisis. Mania has this tendency to act like it's nothing more than a celebration of the 2D classics and nothing more, but then tries to act like it's a completely new 2D Sonic game with zones like Studiopolis. The problem is, there's only 4 unique stages in Sonic Mania out of the 12, which just makes me ask, then why did you make original zones in the first place? Don't get me wrong, I love the zones in this game, especially Studiopolis. It's the best zone in the game for sure. But if you're gonna have mostly returning zones, why not just have them all be returning zones? Because doing it like this makes me feel that the new zones are insignificant and are wasting a slot for another classic Sonic stage to return, making me think this game is trying to be an original game, which if it is, it's not doing it very well, or how I feel now. Makes me wish we had more of these original stages. I love a lot of these stages that Sonic Mania includes from the previous 2D Sonic games, but let's face it, a lot of them are pretty much the same as they were as the original, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, and again, the gimmicks put in place help it feel as though it's all new, but I'm constantly at war with myself on how I'm supposed to treat this game, because I feel it wants to do 2 different things at once. It feels like it wants to be original, but it feels like it also wants to be a celebration of the 2D Sonic games and nothing more, which puts the game's identity into question. And for someone like me, who loves the original stages, makes me wish this game was a lot more original. And I'm not saying I want only original stages or only classic stages. I just think there should have been a better attention placed on balancing both, because with it being off balance like this, it makes me want this game to be two things at once. And for that reason, I personally cannot rate Sonic Mania as my favorite classic Sonic game. It's such a glaring issue that I can't get across, and believe me, I would love to, because Sonic Mania does so much that I would love to say it was my favorite Sonic game, but I think the other classic games are all original, and I have a better understanding of what they want to be, and that in my eyes matters more to me. But NitPicker, you said that Sonic Generations was your favorite Boost game, and it's unoriginal, but you see, that's because Generations gameplay was significantly better than its competitors. Sonic Mania doesn't have that because it's so close to the classic Sonic games in terms of quality, and its new qualities aren't as apparent like Generations compared to Unleash Your Colors, so I think I prefer something like Sonic 2 and maybe Sonic 3 compared to Sonic Mania. I'm not trying to undermine Mania though, don't misunderstand. This game is great, but the lack of a proper identity is what gets a die-hard Sonic fan like me kind of frustrated. To see the potential of this all-original 2D Sonic game, which is proven it has the talent to make, is squandered by making most of the game about returning zones, and I'm just not a fan of that. What I'm also not a fan of is Sonic Mania's final level, Titanic Monarch. It's actually okay, I just needed a segue to wrap up the story. It's just a little cramped and annoying. I think something like Death Egg Zone from Sonic 3 is a little bit better than Titanic Monarch, though I do love the spectacle of running up with a gigantic mech in the background. I really just don't like Act 2, and I don't really know why, but something about it, I just don't. But I do know why I don't like the final boss. I really don't know how you beat the boss without juggling your rings. I'm most likely playing it wrong, but I never understood how you play this properly without relying on juggling your rings. Am I dumb? Maybe. But of course, that's not the true final boss, because we don't have all the Chaos Emeralds. So let's talk about the special stages. These are for sure, without question, the best special stages, period. These are fair, these are fun, and they aren't annoying or bullshit hard, and there's even strategy involved because of the two factors at play. You see, your goal is to reach the UFO carrying the Chaos Emerald, and you can either prioritize speed and try to reach the UFO quicker, but you'll be more slippery and lose control, or you can prioritize rings to make sure you have enough time, making these by far the best special stages because they are based on skill and not flat out luck compared to what we saw before. But now that we have gotten all the Chaos Emeralds, it's time to face the true final boss in this all-out tug of war where Eggman and a Hard-Boiled Heavy go for the Phantom Ruby, and you as Super Sonic must drive them both off to reclaim it. This final boss really isn't all that bad or hard. I did have to get used to the controls and the ring mechanic, but we all know I'm an idiot, so don't worry about it. But I'll let this boss play a little so you can see for yourself and listen to this poppin' final boss theme. We beat both Eggman and Hard-Boiled Heavy and then get sucked into a portal with the Phantom Ruby, ending Sonic Mania with a cliffhanger. It probably leads to what we're going to be talking about next, because 1 year later, after Sonic Mania's release, it was then announced that it would be getting a physical release, along with new updates with quality of life improvements and brand new Mania Plus DLC for $5, and the physical version being $30. This was an awesome addition, because a lot of people, myself included, really wanted a physical version of the game, and they went above and beyond for this re-release, because it includes a beautiful, yet admittedly cheap art book, but it gets the job done. Wonderful reversible cover art, even if the banner should say Sega Saturn, but I'll let it slide. All in a really cool holographic case. The only complaint I guess I have with this re-release is that I wish they added the new characters for the holographic sleeve. There was even press artwork for it, so they could have used it, but nope. Okay, so first we'll go over the quality of life updates, which, fun fact, actually leaked on UK PlayStation 4 systems if you happen to have your console on or in rest mode in early April, and that is something the UK will always have over us. But it added a lot of small things, like being able to access bonus features and save files and not just no save mode. You can skip all of the cutscenes if you want to get back to the action. Super Sonic got some brand new idle animations and a really cute animation for Tails in Chemical Plant Act 1. Most notably, there were a good handful of zones in the original game that didn't have zone transitions. That was fixed in this update, along with Metal Sonic's boss fight in Stardust Speedway being completely reworked. Like this second phase, where you're supposed to hit this mini Sonic into Metal Sonic, now has a double attack where if you manage to miss, he'll shoot in 4 directions, and the final phase being completely remodeled into this thing based off of Knuckles' Chaotix. That, along with the other small changes, worthwhile update. But of course we have the Sonic Mania Plus DLC, which includes Encore Mode and 2 additional playable characters, Mighty and Ray. Yes, the characters that have been missing for years are finally back in Sonic Mania in the Plus DLC, which also includes palette swap versions of the zone in Sonic Mania. But first things first. Sonic exits the portal in the DLC. We run through Angel Island for a good 10 seconds and find a capsule with Mighty and Ray inside, which leads you to the ultimate choice. Who you gonna choose to start your next adventure, Mighty? And from there, the Encore mode has a different gameplay format. It's basically playing as Sonic and Tails, but you can switch between the characters at any time. Except when you can't, and then you'll just hear, "Motherfucker, Mighty's right next to me!" You can also get new characters via getting them by monitors. But wait, I didn't start this mode with Tails and Knuckles, and Ray was taken by the Hard-Boiled Heavies, so am I just teleporting them to my location no matter what they're doing? Anyway, you run through the same zones as the main game, except they are palette swapped and include extra level designs for Mighty and Ray. Or so they say. Because maybe I'm missing something here, but outside of this part in Green Hill, I cannot think of a single other thing that was meant for Mighty and Ray's movesets. Again, maybe I'm dumb, maybe I'm missing something, but I would also like to add for the record that Ray's ability is very similar to Tails. So if there was something for Ray the Flying Squirrel, you could most likely still access it with Tails the Fox, so it's not exactly exclusive. I'm jumping ahead on Mighty and Ray's movesets, so let me finish what I was saying. Encore mode has palette swap versions of the levels you play in the main game, and I'm not gonna lie, they're kinda lame. Don't get me wrong, there are some cool ones like Sunset Green Hill and Purple Mirage Saloon, but the rest are, oh man, you know when I was playing Sonic Mania, the first thing I thought of was what if they made Titanic Monarch green? Yeah, most of these are unimpressive, and I'm not gonna lie, kinda worse than their originals. Again, there's some good ones in here, but most of them are pretty bad. Anyway, let's welcome back Mighty and Ray now and talk about their playstyles. Mighty can smash the ground and uses Shell to be invincible from spikes, making a pretty good starting character. If you want to try this game out for the first time and have the Mania Plus DLC, I mean you should, it's only $5, then start with Mighty to start your journey. And Ray can use his flaps, you know, because he's a flying squirrel, to fly through the air, and with a good strategy you can keep him in the air for quite a while. And finally, last thing we need to talk about, you need to get the Chaos Emeralds again, and they're a lot harder than the main ones in the main game. And apparently, they are the original special stages backwards. I don't know how they made that so much harder that way, but they sure did. And now to complete Encore mode, where the Phantom Ruby reacts and we fly off before the Phantom Ruby can suck us up. And it ends so anticlimactically. Well, alright then, all's well that ends well, I guess. Well, as anticlimactic as this is, it's time for my verdict on Sonic Mania. Sonic Mania is a fantastic game created out of love for classic Sonic, both the base game and the DLC. It may have a huge identity crisis, which for me doesn't make it better than Sonic 2 or 3, but I will not for a second undermine the amount of love and effort Christian Whitehead and his team poured into this project. With some love new and old, with gameplay that hasn't gotten stale, Sonic Mania is a must-buy, especially for its price point. $20 for the base game, $5 for Mighty and Ray and Encore mode. This is a must-buy for whatever system you choose.
Alright, well we have finally finished the Sonic series until the release of Sonic Frontiers. It's been a bumpy ride, but I enjoyed it all the way through. Who are you?
I can't believe you actually thought that Mania was the last game that you had to review, or that you even made it this far. When we made that deal for me to erase your memory, I had thought that you would have remembered it at some point, or had just given up.
What? Erasing memory? What the hell are you talking about?
When you started the Sonic series, you were so scared because of the one game you were disappointed in. The only 3D modern Sonic game you were on board the hype train for. And you couldn't continue reviewing the series without an unbiased look.
What game was that?
Take a look in that case and find out.
No! Oh!
That's right. You remember it now, don't you?
Everything. It's coming back, everything!
But I'm afraid that we made a deal. That if you were to make it here, you would have to bring on a very special guest as punishment. Someone you know quite well, NitPicker. A guest that is both dimensional and temporal.